and then you'll have to take your shirt off. Welcome once again to Chill Filter, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to. But you probably should. You probably are. Hey, that's why we like you. Another episode, another fun time. This is episode 4. No, not 4. This is episode 343. We're closing in on 350. That means just about 7 years, which is dope. I feel like that's such an accomplishment. 350. Like if you told me at episode 50 that yes, you will make it to at least 343/350-ish, I'd be like, that's crazy. I'm into that. I guess I'll keep doing this. But I kept doing it anyway, people. And Bryan and I are keeping it going. So
so are your kids in the background.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Beck is having a fun time.
Yeah,
but luckily I locked the door this time. Because we just released the re-entry buzz with Blanton's Red, and she was, I forgot about it. It wasn't terrible, but she was into it. She was very into it.
Yeah, I should rewatch that just to see how it came out. Yeah, that's funny.
It was funny. But we're drinking Scotch, Scotch, as we say on this episode. And we're looking forward to 2 single malts from Highland Park Distillery. But before we talk about whiskey or Scotch or anything like that, let's talk about some business. What do we got? Write us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Ooh, been a while.
We know you're loving us. We know you're 4 episodes deep and you are hooked. Maybe you could tell people why you like us on Apple Podcasts. We haven't gotten one of those in a while, so we could use a recent, and maybe you've been a listener for like 400 episodes, which is not possible, but maybe you listen to certain episodes multiple times. Yeah, exactly. It's not impossible. But maybe you should write us a Apple Podcasts review, especially if you have a Apple phone or a MacBook or something like that. Just do it. Just do it. Make up for Mincelprick or whatever his name was. That was like, you guys meander and you guys are like, what does he say? Inaccurate or like completely inaccurate?
That's
I forget.
What it was.
Make
Yeah. Inaccurate, meandering. Yeah.
So I've gotten over that finally. Hey, you can believe
Doesn't
that.
sound
Especially,
like it.
Dude. No. Here's the thing is that I actually believe him. At least the meandering is definitely the case. Like, don't get me wrong. That is what we are all about. But the inaccuracies, earlier on in our first 50 episodes, I probably had a lot of inaccuracies because of things I assumed about the whiskey world. But now I do all the research, and I always kind of had. Anyway,
I thought that was your door opening. I thought it kind of sounded like.
Luckily, they are happy noises.
Yeah.
But yes, listeners and viewers, that is my daughter having a good time in the hallway.
Adorable. Well, now that we're past the business.
Yes, we're past the business.
My daughter has not been having a lovely time.
Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately, she picked up COVID, actually.
Oh, rough.
Yeah.
But you guys are good?
Yeah, we're good. Somehow we haven't gotten it from her.
Nice.
But she had a runny nose and she was super like low energy. But that was it. Just those 2 things. Everything. She's a couple random coughs, a couple random sneezes, but nothing like out of the ordinary. Nothing indicative of truly being like sick, other than just having like a runny nose and just general kind of lethargic and just wanting to like cuddle and stuff, which is kind
not
of
a bad thing
on its own. Yeah, but today though, I will say it's day 3 or 4 today. I think we tested her 3 days ago, but. Today, like you wouldn't even know she was sick at all, actually. Nice. So I don't know if she's over it or if she's like getting a lot better and is almost over it. But everything's doing okay. And I did hear from a couple other people too that when their kids have picked up COVID, it like really didn't affect them much. They didn't, just a couple sniffles and nothing too crazy, and that was it. So I guess it just doesn't affect kids too much. So
it's an old people disease.
Yeah, I know.
It was like first, a thing, which was like such a weird recollection to be like,
feels like a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
No, it's so weird because it was just like, it was a different time.
Yeah.
Thank God, to be honest, because like,
yeah,
that was a weird time and a rough time, and no one knew what was happening. But the good news was like, they were like, so far we know that it affects, like the death rate more so affects older people than younger people, because there are some viruses and stuff that will easily take out a child, but not so much adult or even an elderly person or something like that.
Yeah.
But could you imagine if it was the other way around for COVID? Things would be a lot different, a lot more different.
My gosh.
Because like people, in a way, it's sad, but people don't care as much about. I mean, I'm going to put it out there, and I don't fully believe it myself, but like some people are like, I'd rather have old people die than babies die, you know, or like for children to die, which does make sense to some extent. And you're like, oh, I could see that being the case, but it's also like lives and people.
I know.
And,
well, it's the old train thing where it's like you can choose to pull the lever so that it hits 5 people or 1
people that are in their 90s, or like 5 children in their 5-year-old range, you know.
Right.
Yeah. But it's this subconscious thing. But besides psychology for a moment, it would have been a whole different beast if COVID were a baby's disease, or virus is the word. But
for sure,
yeah, dude. And like, here's the thought. We're not going to go into this, but like, the thought is, what if something happened very similar to COVID that was the opposite? Would we? Because if the same thing like COVID happened again, people would not care. Like, they're just like, hey, even if it had a higher, like, even if it had like a death rate of like 5 to 10% or something like that, people would be like, I will die if I die. In my opinion, this is my opinion.
Yeah.
Because we are so sick of COVID at this point. But if it were different and said like, hey, the 3% death rate were more attributed to children, it would be so weird how it would be a whole new beast. Like, people would be questioning everything. But that's just my opinion. What do you?
I still remember. I still remember the days when like I had to wear masks around work all the time, and even now, still to this day, I'll be like, I'll get up from my desk and I'll go walk to the cafeteria, and like as I exit my area where my cubicle is, I'll like every now and then I'll have this feeling of like, oh, I'm missing something. I don't have my mask on, or like it's still like I still feel that feel sometimes.
Did you work remotely while like the beginning of COVID? Not at all.
Really, no.
That's crazy.
Well, maybe for 2 or 3 weeks at the very beginning of COVID. I don't really remember too much. But what I do know for sure is just in a matter of a couple weeks, I was right back at work again.
Like April 2020, you're already back to work. Wow.
Totally,
like in person. You just wear a mask.
There's work that I can only do in person.
Yeah.
So like there were exceptions made for people who had to be in office, and I was one of those people. So all through the prime of COVID, I was driving into work and doing all the work stuff.
Nice. That's crazy. Yeah, no, because I was working for a larger insurer at the time. Look, the light in the dark. But I was working for a larger
whenever you switch from Glen to Glen, you have to put your jacket back on take it back.
Yeah, and then you'll have to take your shirt off. No,
yeah, because it's pretty light under here.
Yeah. No, but yeah, no, so my first company, like when I worked for them, and I was living in Phoenix, and basically during COVID they sold the headquarters.
Wow.
And it's a 10,000 person headquarters for my first company during like the one during COVID I had. And so they're like, don't intend to come back to the office. We might have a few offices open. And they did. They kept the office we had in Phoenix area. And they said basically at a certain point, well into at least 2020, actually it was the beginning of 2022-ish, they started to say, you can come into the office, but you have to do a bunch of stuff to do so. But you don't have to at all. Like, no one's expecting you to.
Okay.
And so it was,
but you're not allowed to come into the office unless you've met certain criteria.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you weren't required to. No one expected you to. You just start working from home for the rest of your career at the company, and there was no expectation to come in from like because they sold the headquarters, and they're like, even big dogs are not going into the office anymore. We are a fully remote company at this point, basically. So,
wow,
it was crazy. But yeah, dude, COVID was crazy. I remember, I think I might have mentioned this one time on the podcast, but I remember I'm not a big Joe Rogan dude, but I actually don't hate his style of interviewing from what I've seen. I don't know all his guests, and some of them are pretty crazy. And like I'm talking like out of their mind crazy. But I remember seeing a clip when I was just scrolling through YouTube or Instagram or something like that. And the clip was someone talking to Joe Rogan about COVID. And it was within the first month of COVID. And it was probably like mid-March 2020. And the guest was kind of an expert in pandemic stuff. And he was like, it's probably a good idea to lose our mindset regarding COVID, that it is a quick, like, what's the word? Quarantine kind of thing. Like it's like, hey, we'll figure this out really quick. He said, this is not going to be a few months thing. He used the term, this is going to be a long winter. And it was quite the long winter of COVID, when we had to kind of deal with it and get through it. And then I remember even like 2020 or like mid 2022, I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm done. And I hate to be that guy that's like, I'm taking off the mask, but I was like, I'm taking off the mask at this point. And like 2.5 years in, basically, and I'm like, dude, I'm done. And like what was killing me was Zoom, because my church started doing Zoom, and actually this will probably be the most of our, or the majority of our Shooting the Breeze segment. Not what I'm about to say, but like talking about old COVID thoughts. But I remember thinking that I was a very social person at the beginning of the pandemic, and very and I still am in a way, but COVID changed me. Like it morphed me personality wise, because COVID like really hurt my extrovertness. And I don't believe actually in being an extrovert or an introvert. But I do think that what I did enjoy about being outward changed, because at the beginning of COVID, I was like, this sucks. And we would start doing church. And like for me, church was a very social thing. Church was not about showing up and, doing this or that. It was about hanging out with friends and saying hi to people, and, in a spiritual aspect of that kind of thing.
Right.
But I remember like when COVID was really in the depths of it, I just started to rely on myself so much, and like socially, and just started to detach socially. And it still affects me to this day, because I don't think the same way I do about social interaction. But anyway, to clarify, I don't fully believe in extrovert introvertness.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Have I ever mentioned it? Okay.
No, I'm curious what you meant by that.
I think it comes down to this. People it's a spectrum, and it's people might agree with that about introvert extrovertness, but my spectrum does not revolve around those words. My spectrum revolves around the energy you get from others. And I believe personally that it's as simple as this. Some people in your life give you energy, and some people take energy from you. And I'm not talking about this spiritual energy. I'm talking about legitimately, like, I feel drained after hanging with this dude, versus I feel energized after hanging with this one dude.
Right.
And I believe that it just comes down to that. It's just, are you surrounding yourself with people that give you energy and therefore are more extroverted or whatever? Or are you drained by people more so? And I believe there's, I mean, it goes for everyone. There are certain people that give you energy, and there are certain people that don't. And it might be different for other people. Maybe Bryan gives me energy, but Sam does not.
Funny, you mentioned draining energy. What was that on the other side of the door there?
No, I love that little energy ball.
But have you ever watched the TV show What We Do in the Shadows?
I've seen the movie, but no, never seen the show.
Yeah. That's right. I forgot. Yeah.
Dude,
I think we've watched at least one season or so, but the one guy in there is an emotional vampire. And
that's so funny.
His whole shtick is just, He's kind of like the Bueller
Oh,
guy from Ferris
totally.
Bueller.
Yeah. Ben
Like
Stein. Yeah.
that guy, his whole shtick is just
Yeah.
like he will just like talk to you in a
I can
way
feel
that
it.
just like bores the crap out of you, and just
Yeah.
he won't stop talking, and then he'll start talking about something else,
And you're like,
and it just like makes people just like shut down and just be like,
so it's funny we bring this up and I get a knock on the door. So part of my energy in the day, I focus on that a lot. I don't like really zone in on it, but I do know it's very effective to me, like the thought of giving or taking energy. And I love my children. I think my children in general give me a lot of energy. But there's a reason I wake up at 5 in the morning every morning. It is to get me time. It is to
Yeah,
get my energy for the day. And what I normally do in that time, I'll take a shower, I'll get ready for the day. But I normally, for me, I read the Bible and I pray. And for me, that is energizing.
yeah.
But sometimes lately, someone has been waking up before she should, and I
Uh-oh.
love this girl. I love her with all my heart, but I need my energy time in the morning. And when she
And
wakes
her
up,
name is Heather.
yeah, no, it's
I know,
her
I'm
name is
kidding.
not Heather. You know that, but of course, um, but it's weird because like normally I feel very energized from my daughters. But there is this time where it's like, hey, I need a stronger energy in the morning. And if
Right.
I don't get that, I almost feel anxious for the whole day because I'm like, I don't have my good start to the day.
Yeah.
And so lately it's been that case where it's like, all right, I know you, but I honestly have boundaries with my daughter. I will say, hey, did you, because she has this alarm clock in her room and it's not a noise alarm clock. It's a light. It turns green when she's able to get out of her room and out of bed. Sometimes she'll
Nice.
disregard it, but I'll
Yeah.
say, hey, did your light turn green? And I'll know what time her light should have turned green.
Yeah.
And
Right.
she'll be like, no. And I'll be like, okay, well, until the time your light turns green, daddy's going to finish what he's doing. Okay. So you can play, you can do whatever you want, but it is my time. And sometimes she listens. Sometimes it's harder for her to listen.
Yeah.
But
Right.
energy is big for me. I need energy.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like one small step in that direction.
mhm.
So for me, I have an espresso machine
Yeah.
that I love very much.
Mhm.
It's like a small enthusiast coffee
Yeah.
shop level
Yes.
espresso
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah. I've seen it. It's
And
like, it's fancy.
yeah. So that it's become a ritual, and it is
Totally.
that is the recharge me
Yeah.
time. And
Could you imagine
fortunately,
not having that and like things came up? It would be hard, you know? So
yes,
go on. I'm
yes,
cutting
I
you
would
off.
totally miss
Yeah.
not making lattes in the morning. Well, sorry, I would
Mhm.
miss making lattes in the morning. And
Yeah.
fortunately for me, Sam enjoys it
Yeah. You
almost
can
as
make
much
her
as I
one.
do. I mean, I enjoy the making of it. She obviously
Yeah.
enjoys being handed a latte in the morning.
Totally.
But there's been a morning or two where
Mhm.
we thought Emma woke up,
Mhm.
or like she was starting to stir, and we were like,
Nice.
yeah, maybe we should go ahead and get up. And we
Uh-huh.
come out and she falls back asleep again for another like 45-minute sleep cycle. So I make lattes, and
Mhm.
Sam and I sit at the counter and just like have a
Oh,
very
that's a good
calm,
time.
and like it's dark outside, but the sun's
Mhm.
starting to come up, and we've
Yeah.
got all the ambient lighting here, like what's
Yeah.
behind me, and
Uh-huh.
we're sipping lattes, and Emma's still sleeping, and it is just like some of the most beautiful
Yeah.
experiences of my entire life.
And it's energizing. Like, it, like,
Yeah,
fills you, you know?
totally, totally. It
Is
like that. I am not
uh
as spiritual a person as you are, but that feels spiritual.
Totally. Yeah. No, I feel that. Yeah, no, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Um, what was I thinking? Is Emma in her room now? Is she out of the
Oh,
bassinet in your
yeah.
room?
Oh, she's been in her
Nice.
room for a month
Sleeping
or 2.
good.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great.
She the other day, well, probably COVID reasons, she
Yeah.
slept like 13 and a half hours the other
Oh,
day. Yeah, we just let her keep going, and
yeah,
we
you
were
gotta
like
go let it go.
we
You're,
were
like, enjoying
starting
a
to be.
long coffee break.
Yeah, I know, right? We have this like sock thing that
Mhm.
we hardly ever put it on her,
Yeah,
but because she had COVID and we wanted to
totally.
like be able to
Yeah,
pull up the app and see what her heart rate and oxygen level is and
totally.
everything,
Mhm.
like again, we hardly ever do that, but we did it because she had COVID. And so we were able to like see, okay, she's still got like 98% oxygen and she still has a pulse, but she's sleeping for like 13 hours.
Hey,
so
let her go. Let her
very
sleep.
comforting to be able to see that. But yeah, we were letting her go, man. We were getting to the point where we were like, should we wake her
I've
up?
been
I
there.
have no idea.
Yeah. The funny thing about Gray is that even now, like she sleeps well, but when she wakes up, she plays by herself and doesn't get super upset. So we're just like, we'll just let her go for a while. And then finally there's a point where we're like, all right, we should probably get her. But it's really
she
nice.
clearly needs
not
some
all kids
external influence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So anyway, what are you entry buzzing on? And then we'll get into
I know, right? Yeah, entry buzz for sure. We went so long last episode too, and like here we are now at like the 20-minute mark. But yeah, you mentioned entry buzz earlier. Let's do that now. I do need to rant a little bit about entry buzz real quick. So there's this Brook Hill, rare character Brook Hill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's this rye called it's a single barrel, right? But anyway, the label on the back says Verde. And they've distributed that all around. There were stores in Phoenix that were selling the Verde. There are stores in DC that were selling the Verde. A buddy of mine in the DC area sent me a Verde sample so I could get to try it. And like the people I know that love like high-end ryes are all freaking out about Verde. So I blinded it the other day with some samples that Max sent me of some other stuff. And anyway, Verde ended up like number 2. Like it is very good. But now just recently I saw it on secondary for like $650 or something. Or it's like, or some trade stuff, some bottles that I have that I could go ahead and like trade these bottles and I could get a Verde if I wanted to. So I was like, I really need to figure out if I really want a Verde. So I poured some Verde just by itself and I was like, I'll just sip it as my entry buzz. And then I was like, okay, yeah, it's good and all, but I should really be comparing this against something else. So I poured a little bit of the Nashville from an episode or 2 ago, whatever it was. It's like, that'll be a good, because I really like the Nashville.
Yeah.
And so I sipped the Nashville and I was like, okay, like this is definitely in the same realm. It's not like the Verde is like tiers above the Nashville. It was like, let's do one more too. I gotta keep this train rolling. So I poured a little bit of my favorite driftless.
Nice.
And so I was sipping a driftless pick that's 8 years plus, and the Nashville pick that's 11 years, and then the Verde. And I'll say, like, the Verde is very, very good. But it is totally it is Verde good, but it is on the same level as 11-year Nashvilles and 8+ year driftless. Like,
so is that driftless the one that Ben got you, or the one that your drinking buddy got you?
Drinking buddy, because the drinking buddy one says 8+.
Ooh,
and the bin one just says 8. Not to say one's necessarily better than the other. I haven't actually directly compared them yet, but I figured I'd at least go 8+. But anyway, cool. Moral of the story is I don't need a Verde because I have so much other delicious whiskey. So that's what I was entry buzzing on. Additionally, I have a pour that I haven't even started on yet of Highland Park full volume. It's the bourbon barrel aged Highland Park. So I'll be sipping that while we're sipping the light in the dark. But what you got?
That's cool. No, I'm drinking we have it on the maybe soon to review list, but I didn't drink it from the pool or anything. This was from Ben Klepsig from my secret sampler. This was my second to last pour. It was the trusty dram from his second set that he sent me. Nice. And it's Bunnahabhain 18.
Oh, yeah.
And it tastes like there's so little peat on it. It's crazy.
Very cool.
And it's like, I thought it was Glendronach 18, or really what I thought it was Balvenie 17 double wood. But neither of those are, Islays or peated, Scotches. It is so rich. It's just, and the age is decent, so it kind of covers over the peat entirely. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. So, now I'm curious how much a bottle of Bunnahabhain 18 costs.
Didn't you get one? I thought you had a bottle.
You are thinking of
Bruichladdich 18.
Yeah, Bruichladdich 18.
No, I'm glad that I drank this then, or not drank it, but like, yeah, I was mixing. So
Yeah.
No, yeah, Boone is good, man.
You're definitely drinking Boona, right?
Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm.
Boona Haben 18, 150 at Total Wine.
Buy
I
it,
might, per your recommendation, I might
dude.
have to
It
just give that a
compares
go.
with like Glendronach 18, like
Yeah.
very well. Yeah,
On the shelf right now, right down the
yeah.
street.
Get you some.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's give some history and stuff. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll be right back after this quick break. All right, we're back. Really quick, some notes to get to this week. 3 notes. First, Max, as of Whiskey with Max, or not as in Whiskey with Max. What a baller.
MAKS.
MAKS, that is. Yeah, he's awesome. He like not only got me a solid bottle that my friend was like raving about, which I might drink for myself, but I also might give it to him as a gift at this point.
You could go half and half. You could get a 375 and just half and half it.
Yeah, he would be down.
Yeah.
He like got it, but not only did he get it, he got it like in like an hour. I was like, oh, let me know. And it was like a day later. And I was like, hey, I see that photo you sent. If you see any more, he comes back the next day, like within an hour of when I reach out to him. And he's like, yeah. And then like, honestly, within an hour, he already paid the courier. Like it was crazy. It was awesome. Dude's a pro. Dude's a baller. Secondly, drink along. We fortunately have decided to do the January drink along in February. You might say, hey, that's lazy. But you might also say, hey, that includes those who like to drink or who like to drink, but also have done dry January.
Who like to drink, but have abstained for the month of January.
Exactly. Who have wisely abstained from really liking to drink. But we'll be doing that the first weekend of February, which will probably be the 4th or the 2nd, I believe, is that Sunday.
Sure.
So we'll be doing that. Keep an eye out on Instagram. Keep an eye out on Patreon. And if you're not a part of our drink alongs and you really want to, you can watch or you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/chillfiltered. And you can get these samples couriered to your door, to your friggin' door. So anyway, one more shout out to another one of our Patreon peeps. In fact, 2 of our Patreon peeps, Curtis and his amazing wife, Katie, who I'm sure also has a hand in this Patreon support. Katie and Curtis, Curtis sent us a sample, each of us, of the pours we're drinking today. What a pair of ballers. I still like not cringe. I still like feel weird. When I held their sweet, sweet son, I called him a girl by accident, but I realized that I called him a girl. I said, you sweet girl or something like that. And I was like, crap, I feel bad. And Katie and Curtis were like, not a big deal. Like they're not a big deal at all. But I realized when I was holding their son that I haven't held a boy child in years, like years. And I've only held girls for years. Like, I don't know if there was even a break since I had Beck to hold a boy. But they're cool with it. Like I know they're cool with it. But I felt bad in the moment. I was like, I literally just called your son a girl.
I have a funny story there.
Memories. Yeah. Go ahead.
So Katie, one time, so we do the nanny share situation.
Yeah.
And Katie came over to pick up Reed one day. And she was like,
hey, bleep? No, I don't think we bleeped them last time.
Yeah, we're good. We're in the clear there.
Good.
So Katie came to pick up Reed one day.
Yeah.
And she was like, hey, we do this thing with Reed. I saw this on TikTok. Like, let me try it with Emma real quick. So she grabbed Emma. She put Emma on her lap and she was like bobbling Emma around and she was singing, "This is how the ladies ride, ride. And then this is how the cowboys ride, Hey, bounce. And then we were talking about it later and Sam was like, well, what does Reed like? And then Katie goes, Reed likes how the ladies ride.
What a funny answer. Like just verbally.
Yeah.
Reed likes how the ladies ride.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
We do something like that with our girls. We do. We kind of adjusted it from a potentially cultural insensitive way of doing it, but we adjusted it to riding like a princess, riding like a princess, riding like a cowgirl, riding like a cowgirl, riding really, really fast, riding really, really fast. And both of our girls love that. So
nice. I think with the number of syllables there, I think I might know what the cultural insensitivity is.
Yes. And all right, so let's get into it. We are drinking Highland Park, the light and the dark, 17 years, both. Oh, you got the friggin' cool bottles and cases. Dude, aren't they so cool looking? I mentioned that in my notes.
I know, yeah. The shout out to Katie and Curtis here. So they let me run over real quick and grab these this morning. So I've got the whole bottles with me. And if you're watching on YouTube, the
guy that bought them for them.
Oh yeah, shout out to that guy. What's his
name
again?
Guy. No, but no, it was awesome because Curtis really liked Highland Park, and I was like, these are half off. Like literally, they should have been $324. Yeah, $324, and I got them for half that. So I got 2 bottles for the price of one, basically.
Buy one, get one free.
Yeah, exactly. And I was grateful to do it. It's one of those things where, like, even I'm sure Max would say the same thing. It's like, hey, if I can help a dude that like really, really wants it for very little trouble, like we'll do it. And that's the kind of community we got here. It's the kind of community we got. Like, dude, there's people all over that are happy to do these things for you. Speaking of which, I got to send Dram Hound via courier his Found North bottle. I'm sorry, it's been a week or two. Dram Hound.
Let me just check here. But I believe Colonel Hughes would have received his by now.
Oh yeah, check it. Yeah, while I get started. But before I get into the notes, I did want to say this is actually not our first Highland Park Distillery product on the podcast. Episode 237, we drank Highland Park 14-year Loyalty of the Wolf. I think that may have been a Sean Ciaro joint. Was that a you joint?
Yes, sir.
Hey, thanks for sharing. Was that a airport thing?
Yes, it was.
That's cool. Yeah.
Nice. I believe I picked that up when I was on my way back from Iceland.
Nice. So I wrote in my notes, I think that was a Sean Ciaro joint, but I'm forgetting now. I apologize if I'm wrong, especially to the person I should have mentioned. So that was
apology accepted.
Sweet. Nice. So wait, did you figure it out? Did Colonel get it?
Colonel Hughes has a Found North in hand at the moment.
Nice.
He also has a chill filtered meetup Glencairn if it survived at the moment.
Nice. Yeah. Speaking of which, what is it? Chasing Bourbon on our Patreon, as well as Jim Nathwig, have both achieved the flask tier.
Very cool.
So they will be getting nice flasks filled with goodies soon. So
I can also say that some certain person named Robbie Dedlow should have received a beautiful Christmas gift, a very late Christmas gift by now.
Yeah. No. And I hope he likes it. I want to see it on his person.
For sure. Now if I remember correctly, he has 2 Del Doc hats now. I want to see one hat one way and one hat the other way, please.
Yeah, and once and then the middle one that says "Yo, I'm Rob." Please do that, Robbie. All right, let's get into it. Highland Park Distillery, founded in 1798. That was like almost 250 years ago.
King Arthur, Sword in the Stone times back then.
Seriously. Yeah. And it's making it one of the oldest distilleries in Scotland. Situated in Kirkwall, Orkney, Scotland. Highland Park is the northernmost distillery in Scotland, located in a region not only known for being higher than all the rest in latitude, but also being like it's basically like its own. It's known for its Viking heritage because it's so high up in Scotland. It's connected to Norse stuff. So
heck yeah. Well, I mean, talk about connected to Norse stuff. Look at this. So here's how the box opens up, by the way.
That's
look
cool.
at all these. Look at this sweet
Norse letters
Norse
and stuff
down here. Yeah,
dude, that's so cool.
Dark.
It's like elfish.
Yeah.
Or is it elvish? You should know this.
Elven, sir.
Oh man, I was wrong on both accounts.
On the inside of this box, look at this
apparently
thing.
That's a dragon serpent, according to their
tell me
website.
more. Tell me more.
That's about all I got for that part.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, Orkney, being a remote, windswept island, plays a significant role in the distillery's character and flavor profile. And we'll get into that in a moment, which is really cool, actually. What makes their peat special is really cool. And Orkney is up there. I saw it was around the 59th parallel, which is equivalent to about Juneau, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and apparently the climate isn't as bad as some people would expect from southern Alaska. Like the worst part of the year, like the depths of winter gets to like 40 degrees, like in the low 40s.
Dang.
That's it. It barely freezes in Orkney.
That's impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
And we'll get into even crazier stuff in a bit. I have no idea why it doesn't get colder than that. But it was established by a guy named Magnus Junsen. I'm going to go with Junsen, a local butcher and church officer who was also an illicit whiskey maker. His secret distillation activities laid the groundwork for Highland Park Distillery. They started production. It began as, like I said, illicit operation, but to supplement income. But they take advantage of Orkney's ideal conditions for whiskey making. The distillery was later formalized to capitalize on the growing demand for Scotch in the 18th and 19th centuries. They are known for balancing, complex single malt Scotches, which combine peat with sweet sherried notes. So here's the crazy thing, and I didn't fully write this down, but the crazy thing about Orkney and Highland Park is that Highland Park isn't really a Highland whiskey. It is technically an island whiskey, but it's not Isla, and it's not like Skye. But it's like northernmost.
Yeah.
But it's known for its peat use, but it's not Isla. It's not Skye. It's not like some of those Western distilleries in Scotland. But the distillery also, and I'll get into more.
Technically, is it a Highland? Sorry if you said that already.
I don't think it is. I think it's
like if it has
not a Highland.
To be put in a bucket, is it put in the Highland bucket?
It's an island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If any.
Oh,
and I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty darn sure it is not considered a Highland. It is considered an island.
Island and not Isla. Yeah.
Yes. Very much. Okay. Very much different. Yeah.
Okay.
Because cool. like Skye or Talisker is made on the Isle of Skye, which is an island, but is not an Isla. But it's also known for its peat in Talisker. Cool. But yeah, the distillery embraces Viking heritage, reflected by its branding. Things like serpent dragons on their bottles and storytelling and designs. But what sets the whiskey apart is really cool here. Highland Park uses peat, but not peat similar to Isla. A very different peat. Because peat, if you're not aware, is like compacted organic material, especially plant material, that is like compacted over the years, and like with the very moist environment and like the dewy and humid environment of Scotland kind of just like stays pushed down, like moss and other organic plant material just gets pushed down, and you get this very dense but also very burnable when it's dry organic material. And so but in Highland Park in Orkney, they use Orkney peat, and Orkney peat is not known as much for the woody peat, but it's known for heather peat. And are you familiar with Heather? Not My Wife, not the album Halfway to Heather.
Yeah, I'm only about halfway familiar with Heather.
Okay, good. No, it's like a flower. It's like a very floral thing is what Heather. It's very fragrant too.
Cool.
But it's known for containing more heather and less wood, resulting in a softer floral smoke compared to the mainland Scotch, which is super cool. I didn't know that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but to summarize that, there's a locality, there's a localization of
a
how
terroir.
What goes into their peat, and they're using their local peat. That's cool.
100%. And their commitment to using sherry seasoned oak casks, predominantly from Europe, imparts rich flavor and dried fruit spice. They're big into using sherry. Highland Park proudly celebrates Orkney's Norse history. Like I said, they're big into Vikings, and they want to connect with those kind of roots because Vikings did live on Orkney in history. Highland Park remains dedicated to preserving the local terroir and the roots of Orkney and the craft traditions, and bringing that to a global, venue. They just big into making good whiskey, basically. And they have a really cool amount of special editions, including what we're drinking today, the light and the dark 17 years. So first, let's talk about the light. 105.8 proof, 17 years, aged in solely refill American oak casks. And when we reuse American oak casks, it doesn't impart a lot of color. So that's why they call it the light. And they said this was to celebrate the warm summer days of Orkney. And I was like, oh, I wonder how warm it gets in Orkney. So do you remember what I said is the lows of the year?
Lows like 40s.
Yeah, just about 40, low 40s. Do you know what the highs are in
probably
July?
Like 55, 60.
60. So their range, I mean, you've been to like places like that, but their range is like 20 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, that's crazy. Like, it doesn't freeze, but it also doesn't break 60. Like, it's crazy to me.
Thanks to the surrounding sea, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so anyway, let's talk about the dark now. This was to celebrate autumn and winter. Exclusively aged in sherry seasoned oak cask for 17 years. Do you remember what it means to be sherry seasoned versus sherry? Did they like right before they like did it, they like swish it around in sherry? Is that what it was?
Yep, they do. Yeah, they put sherry in, they tumble it all around, and then they dump the sherry out
into the wood.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's not what you would expect of like, hey, this is a sherry cask or a sherry butt.
Yeah,
which tends to drive me nuts.
Yeah, and they should just call it a sherry spin job cask.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, the old making this sherry butt whiskey or dizzy, making this sherry butt dizzy. Yeah, I like that better. Also 105.8 proof. So these are very similar whiskeys. One was exclusively aged in ex-fill American oak, and the other one was exclusively aged in sherry, or at least sherry seasoned oak.
Yeah.
But for 17 years, like it wasn't like a finishing thing. It was like, no, 100% of each one. Legit bottles, as Bryan was showing us with the cool like cases and stuff. But one is completely dark and dark wood, and the other one has lighter wood and a pale green bottle.
Yep. And here's the bottles here outside the boxes here.
Ooh. But
put that in front of my face right there. Yeah.
I like the pale green. I described that well.
I know. Yeah. See the bottom there. You can see the green at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. It's like sea glass green. But not sea foam green. Anyway, retail was 320, or I'm sorry, 230-ish. No, I'm sorry, 324-ish. But like I said, we were able to get a half off. So I'm gonna start pouring, although I know you've already poured.
I was going to, but I decided to save the cork pop. Decided to save the cork pop. There is one very important thing that I'm about to say.
Okay.
And I am very excited to hear if Curtis even discovered this himself. But the earlier I showed you the box, and I was holding the box up in front of the camera, and I was like, look at this. Look at this. There's a sweet decal inside the box.
Yeah.
And I pointed that out. That is not just a sweet decal. That is a whole booklet inside the box. So there is a light booklet and there is a dark booklet
What does
inside
it
each box.
say on the inside?
And it's all like beautiful,
it's all French to me.
Beautiful artistic stuff and explanation of where their head was at when they made this whiskey. There's some stats on the whiskey, which, by the way, in case you didn't mention, I don't think you did, there were 28,000 bottles released of each one. And just look at this seascape on this one. So this is the dark pamphlet.
Orkney, baby.
Look how freaking gorgeous this is. We're going someday.
That'll be 2029.
28,000 bottles.
Orkney.
28,000 bottles released.
Nice.
Imagine who buys just one of these, who decides. I mean, I get it. Not everyone has an unlimited budget, but imagine just having to pick one and only getting one.
That'd be crazy. Which one would you pick pre-drinking?
Dark.
If you had to pick one of the other. Yeah.
Thematically, I would absolutely have picked dark.
I don't know. I
like the fall, winter, dark, deep dark. That's that's normal whiskey choice for me thematically.
My thought is that island whiskeys usually are better, or not better, but maybe better. I mean, Bunnahabhain 18 was very, very finished and like very sherry-y and very port-y almost. But usually like Ardbegs that I love to the core are American oak aged, and they're very light whiskeys. So there's something about, maybe if you were to go dark, I would go light. But we'll see on the palate. Yeah.
Perfect. Look at this. Yeah. There is no question about which one is which here. The dark is clearly very dark, and the light is clearly very light.
It's true. This. What should we drink first?
Ooh, let's go light and then dark. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we don't want to be overcome by the dark before we experience the light
side. You ever hear the Star Wars Gangsta Rap?
Probably, but it's not sounding familiar right now.
It was like the year 2000, if not 90s, flash video on the interwebs.
Then I probably saw it.
Yeah. It's it starts off very beautifully, and it's got what is it, like Palpatine or something like that, and he's like basically talking and rapping with Darth Vader, and he's like, "It's not the north or the south side. No, it's not." And you get like Vader going. It's like, "It's not the east or the west side. No, it's not. It's the dark side. You are correct." And it's just beautifully animated and terribly animated at the same time.
Definitely heard that.
Yeah, it's great. And they're like, what is one of my favorite quotes of that thing? I won't go into it. I won't bore you. Look it up. The Star Wars Gangsta Rap. So the light, it's not super peaty, but you get a little bit of peat there.
100%. Yeah.
But it's also, you can like drag that thing straight up your nose and not get hit by 105.4 proof or whatever it was.
Perfect assessment. Very light very light peat here for me, and crazy sniffable. Comparing against the bourbon barrel aged, the Highland Park full volume I was intro buzzing on, there is mountains of fruit on the light compared to the full volume. The full volume is much more of a dry, traditional Highland Scotch, like you can imagine, even though I guess it's not Highland. I said it anyway. The light has a very prominent mellow fruity presence, like a melon or like an apple, kind of like a middle of the road sweetness on the fruit here.
Yeah.
You look like you're writing reentry buzz notes right now.
Wait. No, I had to look it up. Is Highland Park technically a Highland whiskey?
Are you asking Gemini right now?
No. No, sort of.
I'll ask
Highland
Gemini.
Park a Highland Scotch? Let's see. No, it's technically an island.
Really? I mean,
think there might actually be like two answers to this. At least scotchwhiskey.com says Highland Park is an island single malt Scotch whiskey.
well, Gemini agrees. Highland Park. Oh, this just says is
No, Gemini gets it wrong. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, Gemini just pulls information from a bunch of sources
Exactly.
just
And they might just be
aggregates.
thinking like it is Highland Park, so therefore it is. Yeah, it's technically the island region. Yes, I'm gonna believe scotchwhiskey.com because it looks legit.
And that is what Gemini says as well, by the way.
Wait, it does say it's an island.
Correct.
So literally, I searched Google and it's saying, yes, Highland Park is a Highland. So did you go directly to Gemini or the Google search? Okay,
Nope.
so I went to the Google search that will give the Gemini
Interesting.
overview.
Well, so wait, in the Gemini overview, in the Google search results, it said Highland?
It says, yes, Highland Park is a Highland Scotch whiskey.
Yeah, the name is literally Highland, Cole.
Yeah. Come on, Cole. Yeah.
That's
which
great.
is in the Highlands.
Well,
yeah,
actually,
it's like breaking it down.
Semantics are important. I straight up on Gemini.google.com.
Yeah.
I said, what Scotch region is Highland Park? And it said,
so that's different. Let me do that. What?
Yeah.
Scotch.
What Scotch region? Yeah.
Scotch region is.
You know, while you're doing that real quick, I will say these boxes, not all boxes have the level of care that this one does, where you can see there's a nice little rubber ring down here. It's not rubber. I guess it's like a foam material.
Yeah.
But it really grips the bottle in the box well. So the bottle doesn't rattle around in the box at all. It's pretty, like attention to detail wise, it's pretty cool.
So I did search the exact same phrase on Google, and it did agree with your an island whiskey. So I was right, people. I was freaking right.
Boom. Yeah. No inaccuracies here.
Yeah. Take that, Mitzel prick.
Yeah. Plenty of meandering, though.
yeah. Don't get me wrong. This whole thing was meandering. So on the palate of the light, it is fruity. Up front, it's a little bit smoky, but not really that smoky. It is complex. Like you're getting hit with a few waves of flavor. But it starts peaty, then turns sweet, and then gets a little fruity in the end. And I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah. It stays very light the whole time, but it stays very flavorful the whole time.
Yeah.
It's I do get just a beautiful amount of smokiness here. And I get a very low level of peat here. I mean, it's there. It's totally discernible. It's just not like the peat is taking the center stage, whatever. It's not prominent with the peat. So there's a little bit of peat, there's a little bit of smoke, there's a little bit of fruit, and it all stays very well in balance the whole time.
Yeah. But it's nothing like Ardbeg or your typical Islas. This is very even an older Ardbeg. Like this is very different, and it is more fruity, more floral, which does make sense with the differences we mentioned earlier. And this is probably a good matchup with certain releases from Ardbeg because they're usually Ardbeg doesn't do sherry finishes and stuff like that. Like this, usually it's a very light color whiskey, which usually means they're using ex-bourbon barrels. But this is good. I got to pour a little more. This is the dark.
I don't have the depth of Ardbeg experience as you do, but from what I've had from Ardbeg tends to be more rich and not dry. This one has a little bit of dryness that I don't typically experience with the Ardbegs that I've had, at least. It almost kind of like how like a drier white wine kind of doesn't wick the moisture out of your mouth from like a old oaky tannin way, but more just it just washes the moisture in your mouth down without taking any away. It's a dryness where it just feels like your mouth isn't saturated with flavors after you take a sip.
So I would even say the difference between this and Ardbeg is typically Ardbeg is sharp on the peat. This is very soft on the peat. That's the biggest difference, I would say, personally. I just added some ice or some water, and I'm giving
I
the old
did too. And it's surprising me with the water.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little tropical fruitness that's now coming out for me with water.
On the
It's a
nose?
little on the palate.
Nice.
There's a little
Ooh, that is
more.
good.
Yeah, the water, there's a little minerality, a little more minerality. There's a little tropical fruitness, and it's a little
Yeah.
more dry. I think the
Nice.
water is a different experience, and neither in a necessarily positive or negative way.
Yeah. You know who was the first to introduce me to Highland Park? One of our Patreon couples, Sarah and Tim Murray. They introduced me blind to Highland Park 18 from my recollection of working with them. They like we would just sometimes hand each other, like we would just like walk over to each other's desk and like put a sample bottle down, and this was one of the ones they did. And apparently, I think if I'm remembering correctly, you can remind us, Sarah and Tim, that they got Highland Park 18 as a celebration for one of Tim's past exams. So good for you, Tim.
I
little jealous.
Probably should have known this.
Tim. No, go ahead.
Probably should have known this, but you guys were work friends then,
Mm-hmm.
yes? Coworkers?
Yep. So Tim is an actuary. His wife, Sarah, also worked for the same company, but she was in a different kind of field.
Oh, cool.
So we were all in the same building and on the same floor and stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, Tim is a fully accredited, or whatever the phrase is. He's a designated fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society. So shout out to that baller, because my goal is just to get to the associate level. But Tim made it all the way.
Nice.
What a baller. Not a great baller.
What?
There you go.
What? There you go.
Bring out the water.
I'll carry the
heavy.
Baller. There you go. There you go.
All right. It's time for ice.
I can't even imagine bringing a sample bottle into work and plopping it down on somebody's desk. Like,
it was a great company.
There is the hardest no alcohol tolerance policy.
Yeah. You can't even go on a lunch break and not that most companies probably won't let you do that, for the record, but I've had a few that were just totally fine with it.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, no, as far as my work goes, absolutely no beer on a lunch break.
It makes sense. Like you work in defense stuff. So you don't want the slightest miscalculation after your lunch break.
Totally. I love this amount of peat.
This is kind of muted. Oh, really?
Okay. Sorry. I took my last water sip. I haven't even put ice in yet, but I'm about to. But just like this level of peat is my perfect amount of peat on a scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, this is like a 3 on peatiness to me. And that's exactly the amount of peat.
Nice.
Like I love and I appreciate more peat. I like it, but my preferred, what do I actually want to choose for myself and sip? This is the amount of peat that I really like.
Dude, I'm totally an 8 guy. And I don't want to say that as like I'm a put hair on your chest kind of guy. But like Ardbeg is usually pretty high, and I love Ardbeg Supernova and Hypernova, and even though there is a level where you're like, all right, it is like the peat itself is burning my tongue. Not even the alcohol, like the peat itself hurts my tongue. That's where it goes like 9 or 10. And that's where I'm like, all right, you Octomore enthusiasts can enjoy that more than I enjoy, or, to the same extent that I enjoy like a good Ardbeg, like a high phenol Ardbeg, but not too high.
That is something that I love to experience a glass of. And then I say, but if I had a whole bottle of this, I don't know when I would drink the rest.
Yeah. I gotta see. Do we have? I'm gonna look at our database. Do we have Ardbeg Hypernova in the database? No, we don't. I'm gonna have to add that to our pool. I'm gonna write that down somehow. But anyway, so we got 2 samples, so we better drink. But one of the things I noticed about the ice pour is that it is more peaty.
A little bit.
Yeah, for me.
Well, no.
Than the
You know what?
water and neat.
I'll take a slightly contrasting opinion to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that it's a more peaty. I think that everything else became more muted, and now peat is the dominant. I think
could agree with that.
That it's the same amount of peat, but now all I'm getting is that peat.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I've just pulled up the dark first sniff.
Yeah,
here we go.
Got my dark right here.
Very different nose.
My Gandalf Rune Glencairn here.
Ooh, you shall not pass.
Whoa,
more rich, more like the sherry shows up on the nose, but
way more
rich.
different. Yeah, way more different than I expected. Way more sherry on the nose.
Very little peat on the nose. Very little, if at all, peat on the nose. This might be like Bunnahabhain 18, where it's like I didn't even think it was a island or peated Scotch. This
is so different. I can't believe this is this different.
Ooh, that's good.
I mentioned dryness earlier. I kind of paralleled like a dry white wine. This is not even in the same
definitely
realm
not a white wine. Yeah.
There is nothing dry about this at all. This is juicy. This is like grape skins fruit. Yeah. This isn't a juicy grape fruit. This is like the skins of the grape. It's kind of like almost like a stone fruit versus a juicy fruit kind of parallel. Yeah. This is juicy in a not thick palate way.
What I noticed about this one is, I mentioned on the nose there wasn't a lot of peat. Well, the palate actually does have a decent amount of peat. And it brings out, it's actually like, I would say overall, the dark is much more peated than the light on the palate. But there is a beautiful balance of sherry and peat, which you don't often get in Islas, even though this isn't an Isla. Even the more sherried Islas out there, this is a beautiful balance of sherry, yet still smoky.
Do you remember when we interviewed Carl Scone from, or is it Schoen or Scone? I can't remember. Schoen from The Perfect Fifth.
Yep.
He's the one who made me understand that sherry finishes can impart a spice.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And this has that sherry spice.
Yeah.
And that the sherry spice bites as much as the peat bites. Yeah. So I totally agree with your balance.
Yeah.
But the balance here on the dark side is that it's a spice.
Dark side.
It's a spice balance with the peat bite. Yeah, I really like this. And now I'm going to need to pour a little more light, I guess, to try to figure out if we're going to say which one we like more. Yeah. It's not obvious.
Yeah.
It's not obvious off the first sip, which I actually like more.
So one other thing to mention is that, my entry buzz was Bunnahabhain 18, which was almost no peat and almost all sherry. Dang. That's a hard question. Which do I like more of these two? Let me think about that.
Man, this is the perfect Scotch for someone who wants a complex but not overwhelming palate. It's not overwhelming,
but it's complex.
But there's plenty here for you to dissect and for you to be able to question for yourself, do I actually like peat?
Yeah.
For somebody who thinks maybe they don't like peat, they should try this and experience this level of peat, which is at the same level of many other things to be able to taste in this set.
Yeah. This, I still can't feel it out. I'm gonna say the Bunnahabhain beats the dark.
Ooh, that's exciting. Now I'm definitely
It's
buying.
weird. But then again, certain more peaty whiskeys might beat Bunnahabhain 18. It's like this weird balance. But I think overall, I do love this. And I do love the balance. But there's something to the Bunnahabhain 18 that is more depthful. Now I'm really, really intrigued to drink that Bruichladdich 18.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
Which is unpeated, by the way.
Oh, really? Didn't know that. Bruichladdich into switching it up.
90-something% sure that the Bruichladdich 18 is not peated. Yeah. Rather than thinking about it from the standpoint of the Bunnahabhain 18, there's something there. Think about it the other way. What's not here?
That's a great question. It is not sharply peated. It is it's not as rich. It is sherry, but it's not rich sherry, is something to be said. Yeah.
Well, I think when you add water to this,
I'm about to.
I think it's going to double down on your opinion here. I added water, and on the palate, a lot more dryness came out for me. It's even more not as rich on the palate for me. So I hope you're adding water to only just a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's not as good with water because of the extra added dryness here.
Hello. How are you? Fine, thank you. Shout out to the day that we have Richard Patterson on the podcast.
I know, right?
It's gonna be epic. Dude, could you imagine, especially if we happen to be like, dude, what we should do 2028 a chill filtered meetup should be at the Dalmore Distillery, basically, like, and Richard Patterson's there, and we're like all there in person, and dude like kills us because we drank it wrong.
Yes, and we all just die. It would be the perfect end,
but like in a good way.
The perfect end to the Chill Filtered podcast is if you
drink it like this, I will kill you. Yeah, it'll be like legendary. Could you imagine? It's kind of like Jesus. He died and things got crazier. Yeah.
Okay, well, you may well, that's true, actually. You may or may not remember this, but mark 2026 in your calendar for a Scotland trip.
Yeah. I'm down.
We are beginning to plan ahead a little bit, and we may do a Scotland trip in 2026.
Dude, Dalmore. Could you imagine? Like, we should reach out now to Richard Patterson. Be like, hey,
right?
We will be there. We just need you for an hour. An hour and a half. At this point, an hour and 45 minutes.
Mr. Patterson, I know you book out a year and a half in advance, and so we would like to reserve your time in the middle of 2026, please.
Yeah. That'd be so much fun. And that would happen, too. Like, if we reach out now, it very well might happen.
Let's do it.
Dalmore? I gotta look this up.
Actually, yeah, I have no idea where Dalmore is.
It's the Highland. It might even be a...
Did Jim and I tell you that?
Exactly. Dang it. What happened to my... dang.
All right.
I
think we still need your water notes, but
I
dropped a nice
probably good for me to do.
So it's juicier. It's like what's that fruit that I can't think of right now?
Apples.
No. Plum.
Okay.
It's like a rich, juicy plum on the nose.
Okay.
I said juicy. I think that leans a little too far in like a rich, flavorful way. It's like a watery plum flavor on the nose. Nose flavor.
They're pretty close to Glenmorangie.
So we can do both in the same day. Perfect.
We could do not only Glenmorangie and Dalmore on the same day. We could do Orkney probably right after that, because Dalmore
Really?
and Glenmorangie are both like in the northern portion of, before you get to the islands. Like they're only like 19 minutes away from each other. Glenmorangie and
Dang.
Dalmore are that far apart. And then let's
Wow.
add a destination, and then we're gonna do
Taco Bell.
Highland Park. Come on, my stupid what's it called? It's running out of battery. My stupid keyboard's running out of battery right now.
Stupid
But
keyboard.
plugging it in right now.
Stupid
Keyboard.
Nobody
All right,
needs
plugged
keyboard.
it in. Highland Park Distillery. Okay, here we go. Okay, so if we go from so that's another 4 hours is to go to, but that would include like a ferry or something like that, which I don't know how long the ferry would entail. It says
Amazing.
the ferry would be about an hour and a half, so it is a little bit of a distance. So maybe we'll just go to Dalmore, and then we'll go down to I don't know, where else would we go? Like on our 2026,
Everywhere.
dude, we're going everywhere. You know who's joining us? Miles Ferguson, Ben
Everyone.
Klepsig, Sean Ciaro. They're all coming. And who else? Who else is like
Katie and
a
Curtis.
Scotch head?
Katie and Curtis.
Yeah, Katie and Curtis are there.
They're coming.
And then who else is a Scotch head?
Jim and Patty.
Yeah, Jim's there. Jim's a baller. Love that guy.
There was a reason Jim and Patty didn't go to Highland Park.
Okay.
I can't remember why, if it was weather or something happened, but there was some regret there. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they need to go with us next time.
Dude, okay, so we need to start. So here's the thing. We're planning 2025 in maybe Madison, likely Madison, but then we also have to start planning for 2026 in Scotland. Dude, that'd be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Okay, are you on water or ice?
I'm on ice now. Okay, so water was good. Let me take my last sip of the water.
Good.
The sherry shows up more on the water pour.
Okay.
But there's still a little peatiness here. Here's the ice pour.
So
great fruity nose.
I felt the same way on ice, where it's like ice. I felt the same way as the light.
Okay.
Where ice on the dark was very muted. On both of them, it really took away for me, and I like can clearly say that dark and light with ice is a no-go for sure.
No-go.
But water turns it into something different that's equivalent, but ice makes it become something that's just not favorable at all.
Yeah. Hey, Emma. You know what we should do when we're in Scotland? We gotta go to Ardbeg.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to what you were saying. I agree. It's not the best pour. It's probably the worst pour out of the three. But there is a richness that does show up on the ice pour. Of the sherry. All right. So here's the big question. Before we get into scores, light or dark?
Okay. Man. Okay. I am just barely dark.
Okay.
When that came out of my mouth, I was like, dang it, I should have said light. I tell you what, the light showed me that I like peat more than I knew that I like peat.
Nice.
But the dark had all of that comfortable, rich sherry spice that I know that I already like.
Nice.
So I guess I'm choosing dark because it's what I already knew that I loved.
Nice.
But the light had a little benefit to it because the peat prominence, the way the peat balanced with everything else that was in the light showed me that I like peat more than I probably think I do.
Nice. I'm gonna go light here. And it's not that hard a decision for me. I think the sherry the sherry notes of the dark show up a little too much for a smoky Scotch. Even though the smoke, I would argue, is a little bit stronger in the dark. Weirdly, even though it's more sherry, it's also more peaty. But I gotta go light here. I do enjoy the dark, but the sherry is almost overwhelming, slightly on the dark. That's my prognosis, or whatever they say.
Prognosis, yeah. The sherry being overwhelming on the dark, actually, like I totally agree that the dark just has a way of bringing out that sherry, the spice, and the fruit.
Yeah,
that the dark shows the sherry so much more
it
than
does
than the light.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I said I still think I enjoy the Bunnahabhain 18 over the light Highland Park. It's interesting because, but that's like almost like port finish style, which is like rich and good. But there's something about the quality and the depth of Bunnahabhain 18 versus Highland Park, the light that I dig. It's weird. It's weird, but yeah, I think the light takes the cake for me. Do you want to score both of them?
Oh, score. These are both gonna land at the same spot on the score for me.
Okay.
Man, and for me, I feel like it's gonna come at like a minus.
Okay.
That it is definitely reaching A for me.
Okay.
It's not reaching like favorite pour of all time, but it's clearly reaching a Scotch that I really enjoy drinking, a Scotch that I'm going to reach for on my own. I'm going to remember all of these attributes of sherry spice or dry white wine. Like I'm going to remember this when I reach for it. So it's going to land A minus for me for both of these. But which one do I like more? Yeah, I picked dark earlier. I'm going to stick with the dark. I think I like the dark more, but it's like 1% more.
That's cool. I'm going to go 9 on the light. I like it. It's hub to what. It's got some complexity that I dig. But I'm going to go 8.9 on the dark. They're close. They are close. But they're also not like phenomenal. Like they're very good. They're great even. But they're not like 9.2 status or anything like that. So I dig them both, but I like the light a little more. So 9 for the light, 8.9 for the dark. Worth picking up if you buy it for $162.
Either. Yeah, easily.
Yeah. And but if you're much more into the peat, or if you're more into the peat, I would say maybe hit the light. If you're much more into the sherry, maybe hit the dark. Yeah,
totally.
So. But both are in the A minus range.
Nice.
That's what I'd say. All right. Now that we've given our ratings, I think it's time for our next segment of the show. A segment that we like to call Whiskey World News.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is Whiskey World News, and today we've got some Buffalo Trace stuff. We're going to chat about Buffalo Trace on Whiskey World News, and Buffalo Trace is thrilled to release the second edition of the Buffalo Trace Prohibition Collection, a limited annual set featuring 5 bottles commemorating the whiskeys legally produced and sold while the 18th Amendment was in in effect.
Heyo.
The
I like
second
that.
collection tributes the following brands produced at Buffalo Trace Distillery, known as the George T. Stagg Distillery,
Yeah.
and one of only 6 distilleries legally allowed to sell whiskey during Prohibition. Mirror Brook, very oldest procurable. Goodness, that's a weird name.
Yeah.
Anderson's Bell, Old Fashioned Mountain Corn, and Silver Wedding Rye Whiskey. Now available at the suggested retail price of $9.99.99. The entire collection is housed in a custom wooden display case featuring historical images of the distillery. Blah, blah, blah. 375 ml bottles, heavily inspired by the Prohibition era packaging. Blah, 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 blah. Cole, how interested were you last year in the Prohibition collection?
That's a great question, because I wasn't interested at all in buying $1,000 bottle collection, but I was really interested in getting free samples from Sazerac, and they were not willing to send them. So
funny how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny how that works. You know who either almost got them or did get them? Dramhound almost got them, or maybe did get them.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
he
did get
almost
'em.
bought a. Yeah, he might have bought
know.
a set, actually, now that you mention it. Yeah.
But I didn't think they would reintroduce this. Like, I didn't think this would be like a yearly release. So but I will say this, out of the 5, I do want to try the Silver Wedding.
Which one is that? Which one is that?
That's the rye. That's the only rye in the collection.
I know.
So, but anyway, I mean, it's like you know, like it's all the same. But what's the deal with the cigars? Are there cigars that go with them?
Okay, there are cigars now. It's like $500. So $100 per cigar.
What?
I'm a
Never
total novice here.
Yeah.
You know, somebody who's super into cigars.
Dude, a cigar should cost no more than $20 at the very, very most.
Okay. But it is definitely $500 for the 5-pack of cigars, where they're branded the same way too.
Yeah.
The labels that are on the bottles are mirrored in the little strips that are around the cigars here, where it's $500 for the set of 5 cigars. Totally. Now, frankly, if you're spending $1,000 for 5 375 bottles, you're probably going to be okay shelling out another $500 for 5 cigars to go with each.
I don't know. Let us know, Dramhound. Which ones did you like more, the cigars or the whiskeys? Did they do that for the first? I don't think they did that for the first release. Yeah, no,
I don't think they did either. Yeah. I think the first time it was just the whiskeys. Yeah, but the second time now. Actually, I don't quite remember exactly what the deal was with each whiskey from the first time around, but this second time around here, the first one here, Old Fashioned Mountain Corn Whiskey, it is a Kentucky straight corn whiskey. So it's not a bourbon. And that one's at 110 proof. Second one is Anderson's Bell. It is a bourbon. It is 100 proof. Third one is Silver Wedding. It is a rye at 125.
Dang, I'm into that even more now.
I know. That's frankly, that's number 1 for me because it's a rye. But yeah, frankly, yeah. Fourth is a very oldest procurable. What kind of name is that? VOP.
Uncut, unfiltered.
It is uncut, unfiltered, and I didn't see a proof for this at all.
There is no proof at least on the
surely it's like, I don't know, 125 to 135 is probably what it is for the VOP for the fourth one on this. Fifth one is Mirror Brook. It is a bourbon. Sorry, VOP was also a bourbon. So 3 out of the 5 are bourbons here. One's the corn whiskey, one's the rye. But that fifth one is a bourbon bottled at 100 proof.
I don't
know. If you see this on the shelf, will you buy this?
That's a hard one. That's actually a really hard question.
Cole, if you saw this at Costco for $800, would you buy this?
Yes. Probably would.
Yes.
Probably would. Because if you do the math, that's 160 at 375. But is that still worth it for a I would need to know what they taste like. Like, it would be so exciting for the podcast to do this, but otherwise it wouldn't be.
That's totally where I'm at.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing this with you, if I saw this at Costco for $800, absolutely not. I would not be buying this. But if I saw this at Costco for $800 and I was doing this with you and we wanted to put out some episodes, like
smoke some cigars. No kidding.
Yeah. Okay. If the cigars came with it, totally.
I would totally throw down for 800 if the cigars came with it. Yeah. At this point,
So, in addition to this ridiculous Prohibition Collection deal, which I had no idea they were going to do a second one. I didn't know it was going to be a thing. So, to see the second year of this coming out is
I didn't expect, and a totally different collection. It wasn't like there was an Anderson's Bell last year. It was like a whole different thing.
True. Yeah. And the labels are much more brighter, colorful, interesting this year.
Yeah.
But I wanted to say that it was exciting to see they were doing this for a second year in a row, but it's not. It's just not exciting.
Especially if they're not sending us samples.
Yeah, that would be exciting.
I'd be like, dude, buy yourself a bottle. Buy yourself a set.
Right. Additionally, Buffalo Trace recently announced that there would be a Weller 18.
That's crazy. At 90 proof.
Yeah, at 90 proof. And they did say, you know what? I'm just going to read this whole thing. William LaRue Weller began his career at blah, 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 wholesale distiller, 1849. 24 years old. Decided, oh God. No, I'm not going to read this anymore. This is 18-year Weller at 90 proof. Cole, how much would you spend on 18-year Weller at 90 proof? Your wallet's out, your wallet's open. How many bills are you pulling out for 18-year Weller at 90 proof?
That's a great question. 300. 350 at the most.
Yeah. You know what? I'll take a little under on that. 350 though, believable. And this is, again, for a 750 ml bottle in comparison to what we were talking about earlier.
Actually, it's a 700.
Okay, all right.
Wow.
No, I didn't see
Jerks
that.
At Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I guess if they're selling this internationally, it needs to be 700 ml.
Oh, that makes sense. But if it's 750,
man, I'd probably pay $280. And if I say 280, if it was 290, I'd probably, so 300 is my like hard cutoff for this. For the sake of getting to try it, for the sake of getting to send you a sample so we could do an episode on it. That's, I feel like 290, 300 is top.
But so this is crazy because there has been a product similar to this before. Can you recall?
I believe, if I remember correctly, it was in the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection.
Yeah, the original Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. There was a Weller 19 at 90 proof.
Well, okay, now hold on. In what I said I wasn't going to read it all, I remember picking up on something in particular here, where they said that it was the oldest age-stated Weller to ever be released.
Nah, wasn't. First ever age-stated wheat whiskey in the Weller. What? What does that mean?
Yeah, right?
There's a 12-year.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I don't know. They don't know what they're talking about over in Frankfurt.
Yeah. What you talking about?
First of all, 12-year. Second of all, 19-year. And I bet you the 19-year came before the 12-year.
Do you remember what the 19-year proof was? Surely
90.
It was like 90.
It was 90.
Yeah. So this is a downgrade from the previous BTAC release.
Yep, by 1 year.
Boo.
Interesting. But there were only like 1 or 2 releases of the Weller 19, which if you see a bottle of that on the secondary, could you imagine what Weller 19's running for these days? Like
literally
40,000.
never even
Yeah.
seen a bottle of that.
I could
Yeah.
imagine. It's one of those ones some of those Van Winkle releases that are just like those barrel picks from Van Winkle that sell for like $80,000.
So
Like this
like
would
the
be at
Benny's
least
one.
40,000.
Yeah.
No doubt. Weller 19 would get that high. I
So
wonder if
okay,
Unicorn Auctions has it. Yeah.
here it is. Today we celebrate the special occasion of Weller becoming the rest of his family. What? Welcoming the rest of his family
Nice.
into the industry with Weller wheat whiskey, aged 18 years. This
Nice.
remarkable release, the first ever age stated wheat whiskey in the Weller lineup. Wheat whiskey. It's a wheat whiskey. That means
Yeah.
it's predominantly
Whoa,
wheat. It's not
really?
a bourbon.
Really? I didn't catch that.
I didn't either, but now that it's spelled out and I'm actually reading it,
Wow. That
first
changes everything.
ever age stated wheat whiskey in the Weller lineup pays
Huh.
tribute to the profound impact Weller has had on whiskey, offering complex blah 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 with
Yeah.
stuff of blah 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 and aged blah notes. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to give some context, I don't know if this was sold in 2008 because I don't think Unicorn Auctions was up in 2008. But Weller 19 sold for only $4,500 at least a few years ago.
Only.
Dude, it could have sold for a lot more than that.
Nowadays.
Yeah. Let me look this one up. Yeah, they're only in the $4,000 range of some of these Weller 19s.
Yeah, but probably like one a year for the last 4 years.
Yeah, pretty much. They're so rare because you would have had to hold on to a bottle from 2001 and like a good bottle from 2001. Yeah.
I mentioned that like a episode or two ago. It's like
Mhm.
in order for your batch ones, in order for you to recoup value on those batch ones, you would have had to stuff them in a closet for
Yeah.
20 years.
Yep.
And it would have had to just sit there in a closet for 20 years. It's like people who bought Bitcoin when it was only like $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
Mhm.
you would have sold when it was like 100 times
Yeah.
value. When it was like $1,000, you probably would have gone
Yeah.
ahead and sold because you never
Yeah.
thought it was
That's a
going to
good
get
point.
greater than that. And then now it's like
Yeah.
ridiculous. But yeah, who holds through all that till
Yeah.
now?
Yeah. Seriously. Is it
Yeah.
100,000 yet? Bitcoin?
Dude, yeah, it's like 105 as of this morning, I
Really?
think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. 105
Well,
right now. Yeah.
oh, I was going to say, unless anything crazy happened today, I
Nope.
don't know. A
Nothing
lot of
crazy.
lot of volatility lately, as you can
Yeah.
imagine.
That's good for them. Good for them. Okay, so let's talk what we should choose from last week.
Yeah. Okay, I got you on this. What
Okay.
whiskey would you choose? We asked you on Instagram. We said, what is a whiskey that you passed on and now you regret it? And there
Originally
was
I said Old Taylor, but I realized it was Old Carter.
is it Carter
Second
or Charter?
Charter. Very different.
Very good.
Very different
Just
whiskeys.
to make sure I get it right
Yeah.
here. So
Mhm.
Cole said Dusty Old Charter from the 1990s.
Yeah.
I said a Weller 12 that I saw in a gas station one time.
Mhm.
Cole naturally won here with a
Nice.
score of 78% to 22%. That Dusty Old Charter from the 90s is looking a lot better than just a Weller 12.
I guess.
But
So.
we got some write-ins here. We got Whiskey Shaman writing in saying
I didn't even see this answer.
Fireball Reserve.
You can't turn
Whiskey
it down
Shaman.
next time.
Whiskey Shaman, if you need a sample of Fireball Reserve, I got you covered. Courtesy of Bryan Duncan.
Nice. Baller.
Yeah. So Madtown Marketer, he wrote in, he said, backup bottles of Remus Reserve Volstead
Nice.
Act at 150.
one.
I don't even know what that is, actually.
It's like one of their top bottles. It's like next to
Volstead?
like the Gatsby Reserve. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Embellish Pod John Hughes, Colonel John Hughes wrote in. He said, every squat bottle Weller 12 when secondary was like $60.
Secondary was 60.
$60.
Yeah.
Marco Nazi wrote in. He said Elijah Craig barrel proof before the current batch numbering system. Dang. I was not on the whiskey scene back then.
Yeah. No, I was. Yeah.
And you didn't buy any.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Probably because they were just plain old shelfers.
Yeah.
All right.
They were too. And I actually remember seeing them on the shelf. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy. We got Dramhound here. Or no, I'm saving Dramhound for last. We got Whiskey with Max here. He says Elijah Craig pirate bottle. Batch 4 or 5 for like 150. Even 150. That'd be even more than you saw it for, I'm sure. Joey T wrote in whiskey drinking panda, right? Joey T? Whiskey drinking panda? Yeah. Yep. Panda passed on the first batches of Found North. Kick himself to this day. The haunt grows by the day on his missing nose.
So before we get to the last answer, I do have a thought, because I did also turn down something. I remember I was talking to this bartender who happened to get a few cases of something in 2016 realm. It was about 2016 or 2017. And I said, do you have it? Would you buy it? Would you let me buy it for $400 or $500? And he said, no, I would let you buy it for $700. And looking back, I should have bought it. It was E.H. Taylor seasoned wood. He got a few cases.
Yeah.
That would have saved me some dough.
Yeah, but I'm sure, like, I've been in a scenario like that before, and when you're there and you're already saying like 400 or 500, like,
that's true.
That's usually like a little bit of a stretch already.
Totally. Yeah.
And then he says 700, and you're like, I just can't like stretch that much. Like, totally understandable, totally believable. But
he's the guy I shared Cured Oak with. He had never had it, and it was a good experience drinking with him.
Nice. Very good. Anyway. So lastly, we got Dramhound here. I saved it for last year. 1953. Nice. Old Granddad. It was a few years ago. He slept on it. He wanted to get it because it was both his parents' birth year. But the auction on Unicorn Auctions ended before he realized. Forgot to set a reminder.
He'll get another chance. There's probably plenty of 1953 bottles of something out there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Dramhound, you got time. You got time. We love you.
Yeah, just keep your eye on the Unicorns auction page. Yeah. No big deal.
All right. Next week. What do you call it?
What whiskey would you choose?
Yeah.
What whiskey would you choose? We're asking you now here for next week. Are you doing dry January, or depending on when this comes out? Yeah. Did you do dry January? We're also curious too. Will you do it next year? How'd you feel about it? Nice. Did you do it? Is it your first time? Just give us the whole experience. How'd you feel about it? So Cole, did you do dry January this year?
No, but I'll answer that with a secondary answer. I respect dry January, love dry January, but I also think that I have decent whiskey boundaries, or at least alcohol boundaries, to say that I won't need to this year. Not against it next year, but I don't think I need to this year, because I separate my whiskey drinking from craziness. But also, like, I don't mean that as like a flippant kind of remark, but I think that, and I'm not against, like, even if you don't have like an obvious, even close to problem doing dry January, I think it's a great reset. But I do believe in strong boundaries. So that's why I was okay with it this year, not doing it.
Nice. You said the words whiskey drinking, and just my brain
whiskey drinking panda.
The word panda at the end of whiskey drinking.
Shout out to Joey T.
Yeah. But of course, here I am now here on January 25th. I did not do dry January also, but we were curious. We want to hear from you, listener who's doing dry January. Tell us about it. How's your experience? Did you do it last year? Did you do it this year? Did you do it? Will you do it next year?
Yeah,
Like
that's our big
we just want
question
to
is, will
know.
you do it again next year?
Yeah.
Or is it up in the air? Yeah.
How do you feel about that dry January? And we appreciate you listening to the Chill Filtered podcast
Yeah, even
during
while
dry
you're not
January.
drinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope. Where are we at? We're at like 145-ish. Well,
Dang.
I hope people hung in there with us this week as we talked
Well,
about a lot of things COVID and a lot of things Scotch and stuff like that.
I know. And I hope we can continue on this level of
Yeah.
personal, getting deep, talking about
deep.
COVID, you know, and I
kids
hope
and
people
life and stuff.
I hope people feel comfortable writing in and just like let us know how you feel about that. You know, if you have certain opinions about things we've talked about this episode, we'll talk about that with you. If
We'll
you
talk
write in
about it. Join our
on
Discord. We'll talk even more.
yeah, heck yeah. Reach out anywhere, ask to join the Discord, and we'll invite you.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
Yeah, exactly. No issues there. But most of all, listeners, wait, what are we drinking next week? We'll figure it out. We'll put it up on.
I know. I was like, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah,
Just
we'll figure
let
it out.
Go.
But we'll put it on Two Pick Tuesday this week.
Yeah.
But oh no, we're drinking with the whiskey shaman.
Oh, heck
hopefully,
yeah.
Hopefully
we're
that works
doing
out.
that for sure.
I want to.
Okay, all right. Hopefully we'll have a
we're planning on it.
Yeah, we'll do a 3 for
and a lot of Texas whiskeys is the plan.
Yeah, heck yeah, that sounds great.
So if that doesn't work out, we'll put up a what whiskey or a Two Pick Tuesday this week. So, but most of all, listeners, I hope that our love of whiskey lifted your spirits.
And then Katie goes, Reed likes how the ladies ride.